Welcome back to Tools and Track. In this episode we're brought to you by the Foo Fighters because
I've got another confession to make.
What's the confession, I hear you ask? When we were lifting our body off, things didn't go exactly according to plan. We f***ed it.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh. Whoops. That's supposed to be a solid line. During our body lift procedure we may have inadvertently dropped it, landed it on a jack and cracked a whole part of where the front mounts onto the chassis. No point in getting hung up in it. We knew we were going to have to do body repairs anyway. Chalk it up to experience. Also I'm going to buy a new jack because that thing's pumped. I'm going to have to get right out of my comfort zone here, and this is what this channel's all about, to be honest. I've never really had to deal with caravans, so my entire knowledge of glass fibre is that I know that it's what my car's made out of and nothing else. So glass fibre is a very light material to make a body out of. Obviously it's got a great weight saving advantage, however there's a bit of a trade-off, and that is that it's not particularly easy to work with. Not to worry though, for what we've done it would have absolutely battered some metal out of the way and I'd have had to chop and weld anyway. So I don't think this is going to take us any more drama or grief to repair. It is however going to be a very different process. Fiberglass is to bodywork what steel reinforced concrete is to the construction industry. You'll have glass matting, which looks a bit like this, which is very, very fine glass strands. These provide the reinforcement, and then on top of it you will add a resin, which is what most of the bodywork will be made out of, and ensure the resin sets, you've got a hardener as well. So for us to do a repair, we're basically adding more to what was originally there. The problem is, in order to add the strength, we will need to make sure that there's an appropriate amount of glass fibre strands to replace what's been chopped out. And what do I mean by chopped out? Well, unfortunately we can't just glue back together this crack because we've already fractured the original glass fibre that was there. Plus, you're not really going to get a good amount of resin in to replace all the stuff just because of the nature of the crack. So I'm sad to say that we're going to have to chop more of this out in order to make a good repair. And that's the tricky part. Because the body isn't one solid piece, so having had a look at it, all the external part comes and joins in a seam which runs right the way down along here. You can probably just about see the seam where I've managed to crack it. There we go, that's the seam. So that gets bonded to a bottom part which allows it to obviously be hollow, which it is in many parts. So our first crack's here, and our second crack, annoyingly, is after the mount hole here. Yeah, but we'll put a wee fracture line here as well. So I think to do this correctly, we're going to want to chop out everything that's got a crack. Right, I'm starting to just babble here rather than develop a cohesive plan. We're going to have to take stuff out and see how bad it is. So, choppy chop. I have chopped out the damage, which as you can see, I've tried to keep as much on the bottom part of this, just to retain as much strength that's originally there. This I thought was cracked, it's not. It's actually, that's it. It's a bit wobbly, but it's alright. I flattened up an edge and took a lot of the gel coat off, because this is what we're going to have to bond to. And I think what we're going to do is start the bottom first, get it to a nice strong repair, and then we'll look at the top afterwards. I'll dress all that back and sort it. So we're going to basically join the old panel in. So the old panel, I get my glove on because that's horrible. So that's what the old panel looks like. Like I say, I've took a good chunk of the old gel coat off. So that, as you can see, I've took a lot of meat off of that, and we're just going to, well, I need to obviously tidy up a few more bits, but we're just going to run strand joins over that to take up the gap. I think I'm going to get a bit of wood and bolt it here and just hold this in place, bond the bottom first and take the wood off and bond the top. When Back to the Future comes true and this flying car thing happens, I can't wait to get the conversion in the TVR, man. It's going to look baller. That's our bandage, so to speak, done. So very small, well I say small, basic amount just to hold this. So the top tip, pre-cut strips, makes life a lot easier. Tiny wee batch that I've made up so I don't waste too much. I'm going to have toasted a brush, but that's what happens. Right, so I've just cross-hatched a couple of strips here and bonded them on. There's plenty of resin. And the same on this side. Now don't worry about an overlap. I'll trim that down. I don't have too much and too little. And that's about it. I got a wee bit cocky actually. I just stuck a wee extra strip in here because it's miles away from the wood. But I've not really touched this side yet. So I'm going to leave that for a good wee while. Paint and plaster. Stick a bit of base on. And just go over it. Better to have too much than too little. Okay, I don't want to add any more on because I don't want to add too much weight to this, so try to do one layer, let it cure, and then build on top if I'm adding any more fibre. The reason being, especially these bits underneath, if we add too much, gravity's going to start pulling it all down again, and I don't want to have any of it fall off. But this is quite a dark batch, shall we say, so there's a lot of hardener in here, so it's not going to stay soft for long. It's going to cure pretty quick, I would hope. So, 24 hours later, I'm all dressed, ready for action again. And we're going to have a wee look and see how this is set. Ooh. Man, glass fiber's amazing, isn't it? Look at that. That's just one coat. It's already pretty hard. So that's the bottom done, which is nice. So next up we're going to mix up another batch and start filling in all of this. So most of the film will obviously be on this side. All that bottom layer is going to do is just stop it dripping onto the floor. While we're here, a wee fracture that's been there more or less since the turbo conversion. I don't know what's caused it, probably just age related, or I don't know if it's maybe had a knock. I'm going to flatten this down and do this as well because, to be honest, I've got the glass fibre away anyway, so why not? Oh boy, COVID-19 ready. That's interesting. What I thought was a crack is actually a previously dodged repair. For that, it's a big dot of filler. So, great. There we go. Nice big slather of new fibre strand. Like I say, that's obviously quite a bit short of what's going to be needed. As you can tell, it's actually bowing in now because the weight of the resin on it, which is fine because we'll build it up once it dries. Obviously, I just don't want to chuck layer upon layer to fall in a gap there, so all I've done there is first coat, basket, holds everything else, so that's fine. And then as for down here, same story, sort of stranded in as much as I can. I've used very small squares in this and just overlapped them. So you get a big long strip to seat. It ends up kind of falling apart and whatnot when you're doing it. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, I don't know, but I find little small squares overlapping. You're adding strength as well because you're overlapping, then they're easier to work with. So, but that's us gone all the way around here on the top. As you can see, it's still, I don't know if you can actually see, but it's still sinking in a wee bit. So we'll build and then sand down. But yeah, another wait period. I'll need to actually go and read the instructions and see how long this stuff's actually meant to take. Because I'm pretty sure 24 hours is overkill, and I quite like this done before the chassis comes back. So maybe I'll see you in an hour, maybe I'll see you in 3 hours, or maybe I'll see you in 24 hours again. So to answer my previous question, an hour and it cures. Well, certainly in the temperature we're finding today. So that's my second coat of stuff. And the second coat down here, so it's starting to sort of build up and look a bit flatter and more uniform. I've made up a jig. I've basically reused the block I would have used for the bottom. So 1, 2 original holes. I've put down the bottom one. I've just chucked a very, very, very sneaky little one in there, and that holds in the top section. So I probably have shot myself in the foot and didn't really need to do this, but having chopped it twice, I thought I'd better bond this back together. And I would rather reuse the original one and graft it in than try and make all of these crazy shapes in a new one, but that's me sitting there setting. And once that's done, as per everything else, we'll flip it upside down, fill in the bottom. I've dressed this back quite a bit, so I'll need to bridge that on the car. The labour isn't actually that intensive, it's just drying times, man. Waiting and waiting. So this bit is definitely getting left 24 hours just because I don't want any fractures or anything happening when I stick it back in the car. So, back again in 24 hours. That looks nice and dry. So even though this is now dry, I am still gloving up because without sanding this, there are rogue strands of glass that hang around. And when you get them in your fingers, they bloody hurt. There we go. See if I can get any more of my belly in shot, man. Quarantine has not been good on my waistline. Boop. There we go, boys. It's a bit fill on this side, man, and we're golden. I'll buff this down actually because it probably could use a wee clean up first, but it's a job, isn't it? Nice and rigid. So, we've got some strands cut out, we've flattened all this down, it's ready to go. I'm going to mix up a quick batch of resin. So, I do need to be fairly accurate here. So, straight resin in. It's probably a bit much, but we can afford to be a bit adventurous by this point. And then we need to get the hardener. It's I think it's like a 2% hardener. So I'll put in a pour, so therefore I need a drop. It's as accurate as that, boys. And just stir it up for 2 minutes. Today's highly irritating whistling is All Saints Never Ever, as requested by Alex Cross. If you're finding that one video a week isn't quite hitting the resolution you were hoping for and you want something to watch in the interim, have a look at his channel. The details are coming out over there. He's doing a skyline and making me look like a feckin' amateur, frankly. If you would like to hear any other whistling, hit me up in the comments below. We'll stick something in the next episode because, you know, that's what this is all about. Never mind the TVRs, it's all about the pish whistling. Before we stick it on, what I'll do is get a base of resin, just so that it's definitely got something to adhere to it, this bit. And then again, a good thorough pasting. So what to do, once you've got it done basically, you think you're finished, just go through anything that looks white. It should look kind of browny wet. It still looks white. Not enough resin on it. So there we go. A wee bit here that still needs a wee touch just to get up. Lovely. There we go. So our repair on the crack here is starting to look pretty good. I saw the glass fibre dry and we've buffed it down a bit just to make it look a bit flat. So next up, I'm going to try a bit of gel coat on it. Again, not something I've ever tried, but it should fill in a lot of these wee gaps that we're seeing, just make it look a bit less porous. I'm not going to bother with putting gel coat on the bottom underneath the radiator. I'm just going to flatten that back and paint it because it really doesn't matter about finish, but I quite like this to look a little bit better than what it is at the moment. So gel coat works a lot like body filler. You've got the gel itself, and then you've got a hardener which goes in it. Mix them at the manufacturer's recommended ratio and stir it all up. I have no idea how this is going to go, by the way. Probably bad. Also, this is white, as you'll note, because most gel coats are for boats, but it'll work just as well as any other. We're painting over it anyway. That's probably going to need a bit more sanding than I was hoping for. There we go. Not the best. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could have been at it for days and got it perfectly flat, but it's never going to be seen, so I'm happy with that. Similarly, that's still wet, obviously that'll blend in a bit. But yeah, I could have went over that, I suppose, flattened it down, but it's nice and strong and you will never see it because of a radiator. So happy days. I'm happy with that. I hope you found this useful. Obviously, you could probably do a lot better yourself. Obviously, I could have probably done a lot better myself. But for the first attempt, it's a strong, stout repair and it'll keep the TVR nice and rigid for months and years to come. So if you found this useful, subscribe button here, really would appreciate that. Similarly, we've got more content down here. Have a look at that. Thanks for watching. In the next episode, I promise we're putting this body on the car. Let's face it, out of stuff to do. We'll see you then. Cheers for watching. Can't remember.